That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there. There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla.
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that biggin.
Hey, welcome in everybody to the BAM Pod. This is Big Ed, your host, and tonight's guest, Zack Thompson, is going to be on here, and it's a good interview. We talk a lot about the Apex. We talk about kind of wrapping up the Apex, what it was this year, what it's about this year. We talk about just West Coast fishing in general, and some of the things that some pet peeves, some things that we think should change out here, some things that are going to change, some things that we're going to kind of sit back, tune in, and listen to it. But first, I want to start the show off with just sending out our condolences to the Martins family. For those of you who don't know, Aaron lost his battle and passed away. For the West Coast here, that was a true hit right there. Aaron was always one of our favorites out here for sure. Just a heck of a guy, a real good, fisherman, just a really good person in general. And for a lot of us that out here, we knew him, we fished against him, and it is a true loss in our sport right there that man has been taken away. So, Aaron, our hearts go out with your family, and I hope you're up there, buddy, listening away. So, thanks everybody for tuning in, and let's enjoy the show. Zack is a heck of an angler out here on the West Coast himself. All right, guys, thanks. Everybody, welcome into the podcast tonight. This is the BAM Pod, and I'm your host, Big Ed. And tonight on the line, I have got Zack Thompson. Zack is a hell of a fisherman on the Delta. He's a hell of a fisherman just about everywhere. And you know how I know that? Because he went ahead and qualified for the Apex Championship, made the final day, and we're going to talk to him tonight a little bit about, kind of what's going on transition-wise in the fishing industry. In the fishing itself in the fall. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Apex and what the Apex did this year, how it's kind of come along, and what it took for him to actually go out there and qualify for the final day. Because I'll tell you what, there's a heck of a lot of sticks out there. Zack, welcome into the show, man. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Ed. And I'm looking forward to getting to talk to you a little bit this afternoon.
Yeah, this is this is always good. I love when I get a friend on here, a buddy on here that I've known for a long time, who's a hell of a fisherman, has a lot of knowledge. This guy he's a stick, and everybody out there if you're turning in right now, you're going to get some good information because Zack is a heck of a guy. So, you went out, and the Apex it's coming to an end. And then one of the really cool things, and I talked about this, and I actually got turned around on this one too, because they had the tournament this last weekend, right? And it was on the Delta, but the twist is that now the final 10 qualify for the final day when you guys have not a clue one in where you're going.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's one of the things. A lot of guys have a lot of questions about Apex, and to be honest, it's a fluid thing. It's not set in stone. Everybody that accepted the invitation or qualified and wanted to participate this year all understood that, we could have 3 weigh-ins, we could have 2 weigh-ins, we could only be qualifying through keeper fish, or it might just be the total weight. We all understood that the Apex is something that's going to be growing, it's going to be fluid, and it's something that needs to be grown and fostered like you would a little child. It's got to come, and it's got to be organic, and it's got to show, the fishing is obviously first and foremost, but, it's kind of a paradigm shift. It's different than everything guys usually fish in terms of tournaments, and it took a little bit from MLF, takes a little bit from the best 5, and we're kind of finding, with the help of Jeremy and visionaries like Rick Pierce at Bass Cat Boats, trying to build something new on the West Coast, because we need to grow our sport out here. And, we think bass fishing is really popular. And for those of us that like to tournament fish on the West Coast, we think, we have the best anglers and yada, yada. And we send guys back east that are awesome sticks, but the market is much bigger back east than it is in the West. And so we need to realize that in order to grow this, We need to build a base of not only tournament anglers, but just anglers in general, and as well as just the public to want to tune into something a little bit different. But yeah, the Apex, we went to the first tournament this year. It was at up in Oregon, and it was a no entry fee, great event that City of Arlington put on. And then we went to Lake Almanor, and it was the best. We had two weigh-in each day, and brought in our biggest 5, and keepers counted for the top 5, and then the weights for the top 5 to make a top 10. Then we went to Comanche, where we did 2 weigh-ins the first day, and then 1 weigh-in on the second day, and then the final day was as usual with the overall weight determining the champion. And then we went to Thermalito After Bay, went back to the 2 weigh-ins. They changed the size limit there because the fishing was a little bit tougher. So the scoreable bass were 12 inches as opposed to 14. And then out of the events at Almanor, Comanche, and the Thermalito After Bay, the points accumulated in those events qualified us to go to the Delta for the championship, where the top 15 qualified. And it was really interesting because I made a top 10 at Comanche. I made a good finish at Almanor. I didn't do so well at Thermalito, and I mean the points, guys, I was well up in the points after the first 2, and then pretty much almost fell out of it on that one event because it's so dynamic that you really have a chance every day to change your standings, not only in the tournaments but in the overall season point standing. So I felt fortunate to make it to the Delta, and I did make it for that final day, and now we don't know where we're going because we had that huge rainstorm come in, and it was going to be so windy and rainy on that final day that they called it. And because that Monday would have been in the off limits for the Pro-Am, we had to not, just do it on Monday. And so, the tournament director, Randy McBride, he just came to us after the weigh-in on the second day. And instead of making us wait for the next morning to see what the weather was going to be like, he just said, "Hey guys, we're gonna postpone the final day to a lake to be determined, and it'll be the Monday after the Pro-Am Championship, which is happening this weekend. And that's how it's going to be." And there was not one guy in the top 10 that had anything negative to say about it. It was all, "I can't wait to do this. This is awesome. This makes it even more exciting. We don't know where we're going." And the cool thing is, once you make a top 10 in the Apex for the final day, all the weights go to 0. So there is nobody carries anything into the final day, right? And so at the Delta in the fall, I just told myself, look, I'm not going to worry about trying to catch weight first day or second day, because all I need to do is catch enough keepers to be in that top 10. And then the last day I'll swing for the fences and go try to catch big bag. And so that's what I did. And I'll tell you what, if you're going out to the Delta right now, you could catch hundreds, and not literally hundreds, of small fish that are under a 14-inch size limit, because I did that for days, 2 days in a row. It was almost like being at Orville with a drop shot in the springtime. Every single drop. But I was, it was fun. So that's a little bit of a nutshell of how the Apex went this year for me. It's just a really fun format. There's nothing more exciting than going out and knowing that every keeper you catch counts, and you can actually, and we're allowed to monitor Tourney X, which, for those of you who don't know, is a app that became very prominent in the kayak fishing, because if people that aren't familiar with kayak fishing tournaments, they go on inches. So you catch an 18-incher, you catch a 20-incher, you catch a 16-incher. Those inches go to your cumulative score. And I believe most of them go with a 5-fish limit. So your 5 longest length fish are what count. So you can catch a real skinny 20-incher or a fat 19-incher, and the 20-incher counts more than the 19-incher. And so Tourney X was adapted for us by Dwayne Wally, who developed it, and he, incorporated some new functions so that we can take our photos. We added an estimated weight, and then those go up onto the leaderboard. So people have followed along. It is a little bit of a different way of watching a tournament because it combines all the weights of each keeper you catch to the cumulative. So the person that it might say is in first place might have 15 fish, but their top 5 fish might weigh less than the guy who only had 5 fish.
Right.
So it takes a little bit of getting used to, in terms of folks that are watching. I know my friends and my wife and my family, they're like, man, you were in like first place, or you were in 10th place, or wherever you were. And it's like, no, not exactly, because the keeper count counts. And so it's just going to take a little bit of people, tuning in, and the more exposure we can get, I think will help to grow that.
Right.
That's I know it's a lot. I didn't mean to overwhelm you, Big Ed.
That's a lot. It's a lot of information to take in one gulp. But hey, you know what? We've been talking about it pretty much all season. It's just been going along. This being a West Coast deal, it obviously hits home for Bass Angler Magazine. We're based out here in the West, and and our owner is part of this fishing group. And you goofed on him a little bit earlier today, saying he didn't even make the final cut on that day. A guy who fishes the Delta all the time.
I did.
I'm leading now. I already said it, so it's on there.
No, because what happened was, so for folks at home that are listening,
only listen to one side.
Being a local on the Delta myself, right. I thought I'd have no problem catching enough keepers to blow most of those guys out of the water on keeper count. But that being said, I caught 5 keepers on the first day.
You said that didn't work out so well. You told me that you came out and whacked a bunch of 7 to 14 inchers. What was the keeper size on that?
Well, so the keeper size was 14, and I went out and I thought, for those of you who know me and those of you who don't but have heard of me, they call me the mayor of Frank's Track, and I love fishing in Frank's Track. And in the fall, I know areas where the fish school up, and I can go out with a jerk bait and I can absolutely whack them. And so I thought, I was telling guys, I'm like, you have no chance of beating me at keeper count. There's no way. And I shouldn't have been that cocky, but I was. And I said, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna catch 30 keepers. So you better get on your game. Well, I went out and I caught. I wore out 2 jerk baits on small fish. I was fishing near a duck blind where the guys were still pulling their decoys out, and I was catching fish every single cast, but they were all between 10 and 13 inches. And so I was telling you earlier that I know Mark must have been stung by not making that top 10 being a local, but he was doing the same thing, or not the same thing, but he was going through a lot of non-keeper size fish. I guarantee you he probably caught as many, if not more fish than most of us were, but there was just a rampant number of small fish that were biting. So it was, but that's what makes it exciting is, I was able to squeak out enough keepers to make it. Now, by weight wise, I was nowhere near anything that the guys that were leading it
who was leading it?
I believe it was Austin Wilson ended up leading the weight after the 2 days, but he was only catching a few, 7 or 8 fish a day, but he was catching 4 or 5 pounds. He was going after the right size fish to win the event from day one. And then Ken Ma, very similarly, the same thing. But then I was talking to Juan Acosta, who's also a local, was doing really well. He led the keeper count overall, and he was catching, decent sized fish, but he was catching those 2.5, 2 1/4, all over 14 inches, where I was in the dink fest, man. It was amazing. But so it was just, Mark, I think, was one of the only guys of the Delta group that didn't make that top 10, where guys like Joe Uribe from Arizona and a couple other guys from like John Pearl from Clear Lake did make the top 10.
Right.
So, but that's part of why Apex is so exciting.
I was going to say, but the thing is that, you just mentioned 2 guys who you can say whatever you want to say, but those guys are hell of a sticks no matter where they go. That's not so, that's the whole point about the top. I mean, there was 15 guys there that I don't care who you are. There wasn't one of them that was sitting there going, I don't even know why I'm here. I can never catch fish on the Delta. That ain't gonna happen.
Well, Yep. And, Greg Gutierrez is a prime example. He won our tournament at in Oregon.
In Oregon, right?
And, did really well. But yeah, he had a hard time catching keepers, and
Yeah.
so that 14-inch fish on the Delta is bigger than any other, quote unquote keeper size fish. So our scoreable fish was larger than any other size limit that any other tournament would have. It's either 12 or 13 on usually,
Right.
And so we, the Apex, one of the things, all the anglers and the staff before the season, we wanted it to be exciting, but we also wanted it to be challenging. We didn't,
Right.
And so they took a lot of input from the anglers, and we said, you know what, let's make it as close to a 2-pound size fish as we can, so that we're not just, weighing in every fish that's over 12 inches long, because that, I think that was something that MLF tried when they first did it. Was anything that was a pound, they would count, or everything that was over 12 inches. And it kind of took away a little bit, the whole thing. Because then guys were just saying, oh, all they're doing is trying to catch dinks, But catching a 14-inch fish in the fall on the Delta isn't necessarily an easy task,
Right.
And so it's exciting.
We have a process that we call simple price, simple process. And what that means is we take our lowest and best price and we post it on every single card. There's no back and forth. And by simple process, what that means is when you meet somebody, they can handle every aspect of what you do in your card transaction buying experience from beginning to end.
Why do you think that is most of the time out there on the Delta? I mean, it's such a big fish fishery. We're so used to catching those 4, 5, 6 pounder fish on a regular basis that, all of a sudden the fall rolls around and these fish are just like, they're super small. What happens?
Well, this is my take, and I'm from fishing there years and years. I think what it is those little fish get uber aggressive. They're so aggressive, and they're really all trying to feed, that they beat those bigger fish to the lure if you're throwing something that the little fish are willing to eat. So now if I'd have been throwing a big swim bait, or if I'd have only been punching all day, or if I would have been, doing some other things, just throwing a chatterbait all day, I would have gotten many fewer bites, but I would have probably caught better quality, right? But I was in the mindset of, I'm trying to catch keepers, and I know that a 14-inch fish isn't a big fish, right? So,
right.
And I've caught a lot of, 14 to 18-inch fish on jerk baits in the fall. So I just said, this is going to be my best chance at catching numbers. And, in those same schools of fish, I would pull out something bigger, try to catch, those larger fish. And the bigger fish weren't as aggressive yet. And those little fish were, and they were just, I think they're taking it away from those bigger fish more often.
So,
and like I said, it depends on what you're trying to catch too.
Well, let me ask you this. So you talk about Tourney X. You're watching Tourney X. Now, did you know that you weren't going to fish the third day at the Delta, or was that something that I know you said it in there, but I maybe missed it. But is that something that you didn't find out till after the tournament was over on day 2?
What that I made it?
No, that you were not going to be fishing the Delta on day 3, because wasn't it going to be 3 days on the Delta for the championship?
Yeah, it was going to be 3 days on the Delta. Yes.
Okay, so on day 2,
3 days of Delta.
On day 2, they told you you're not going to be fishing the Delta on day 3, right? It wasn't day 1 that they told you that. It was day 3 or day 2.
No, it was day 3.
Okay, so that does make right, because that makes a huge difference. I mean, you could have been sitting there watching the score tracker or the Tourney X, and you could have been, day 1, you're going, man, you know what? I'm not catching 14-inch fish, but these guys are racking it up. Maybe I need to go start punching. Maybe I need to go start flipping and punching and throwing big swim baits and things like that to get that weight up, right? I mean, because you said Austin Wilson was trying to, he was catching the big fish. I mean, and that kind of, it's a very interesting part of this whole Apex that I'm seeing right now that, going into it, he was probably sitting there going, I'm just going to go catch monsters and rack this thing up. And then on day 3, which wouldn't have mattered though, right? Because they're actually going to cut it on day 3. Okay, so that wouldn't have mattered.
Exactly.
It was just a choice for you. It was just a choice for you to say, hey, I'm going to catch smaller fish, but I'm going to catch a ton of them.
Yes. But I mean, in the mind of a tournament angler, you go out 2 days in a row and you're catching solid fish that could win the event. you have a higher confidence going into that final day that you can catch big fish.
Right.
Whereas what I was doing, I knew going into it, no matter what I did those first 2 days, I would have to go find something new on the final day.
Right.
But being that I have a lot of history there, you know, I had a bag of where I thought I would go depending on the weather and whatnot, you know. And then the one kind of other kink that we had on the beginning of the second day was Randy McBride, the tournament director at Blastoff. He said, you know, the weather forecast isn't good tomorrow, guys. He goes, you know, there's a couple ways this could go. We could, you know, we may call it at the end of today. And then the overall weight of the first 2 days, you know, it could be the end today, but we're gonna wait and see. And you know, so you may want to go out and catch big fish, but I'm not telling you that we're gonna call tomorrow. But you know, it could be an option, or we could wait and see what the weather's gonna look like. You know, so the chatter during the tournament blast off on that second day was, well, maybe I should go try to catch big fish today, you know? And so actually in the morning, I went to a few areas and I said, all right, well, with this tide, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to see what happens. If I catch a couple nice ones, or even if I catch a fish, I may try to do this all day to try to get some weight up so that I can, you know, finish high in the standings, because then it would be the end, you know. But I did that for about a half an hour and I said, you know what? They're not going to call it tonight. I don't know what they're going to do. So I need to get back on the keeper program and catch what I can catch, you know? And so that second day I ended up catching 5 keepers and, or 5 scorables. And so, you know, it ended up working out in my favor. But, and then you also have in the Apex, there's double qualifiers. So if you're the first in weight and the first in keepers, you don't take 2 spots. So then they bump one down and it rotates. It goes, you know, the highest in weight, then the next in keepers, and the highest in weight. And so there's some fallout there that you have a hard time really knowing where you finished, unless you were the one with the most keepers or the most weight. You're pretty much guaranteed first or second or third. But then as you start dropping down, it's like, well, how many keepers did you catch? What was your overall weight? And you start trying to do all the numbers in your head, but it's too much math for me to do. Smart guy like you'd probably be able to figure it out, but you know, so, but no, it's, you know, it is, it's a whole different ball game. The guys that are starting it next year that haven't done the format yet, you know, we've talked amongst ourselves, and they have a lot of questions. Most of it comes down to, how am I going to react to the format? How is it going to fit my fishing style? What do I have to do to adjust to do the best in that format, you know? And it's just basically, you know, it's like doing something totally new. It's like fishing your first tournament, because you don't know how it's going to go.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. You know, it's going to be day 3 coming up next weekend. You can't pick the Delta. Where do you want to go? If you could just, like, guys, this is where I want to go, and they say, all right, let's take Zach.
You know where I'd want to go. I'd want to go somewhere I've never heard of. I'd want to go. I mean, I hope they take us somewhere that I would have never even thought there'd be a tournament. You know, like, I mean, I'd rather not go. If it was my choice, I would take a list of the lakes that are within, you know, a reasonable drive of the Delta, because they have to have all their stuff set up on Sunday for the championship, for the Pro-Am, and then they have to be able to move all their stuff somewhere and then have us show up there so we can fish the next morning. So, I mean, whatever's in 100-mile proximity or so, 150 miles of the Delta, and say, we're going to this little pond because it's only going to be 10 guys.
Right.
We don't need to have a big lake. You know, it could be anywhere that we can go. I would love to go somewhere where all 10 of us were like, I would have never thought we'd have a tournament here. And then let us figure it out that morning and let the winner come out at the end of the day. You know, I mean, but again, you know, they could tell us, hey, you're going to Sacramento River. You're going to only be able to fish X or Y stretch of the river. You know, maybe they take us to Folsom. Maybe they take us to Oroville. It could be, you know, Berryessa. I mean, I'm just thinking of lakes that that I'm thinking of, but there's way more lakes than that around here. You know, we could go to
there's tons of lakes.
We could go to Lake Sonoma. We could go to, I mean, we could go to Rancho Seco. I mean, there could be, who knows where, you know, it could be on the pond out in Discovery Bay, that private lake. I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't think we can launch boats there, but I mean, that's the cool thing about.
I mean, the possibilities are endless when you're only talking about 10 boats. I mean, you're not talking about you need anything major. You just need something consistent. I mean, I'd love to see you guys have to hit something like a Scott's Flat or a Rollins Lake or a freaking, you know, one of these lakes that's just you've never been on or never heard of, and they're just like, what? We're going where and doing how?
Yeah. Or we could go to Pardee or something like that.
Pardee, cool. Any of those little lakes. I was trying to think. Most of you guys have good quality boats, and there's that lake over there on the Bay Area, San Pablo Dam.
San Pablo.
Oh man, that would be a heck of a little. I mean, you could put 10 boats on that thing, and you guys could swing for the fences. And I mean, it could be, you know, that's a 50-pound, 50-pound lake for 5 fish.
You could, especially this time of year. You know, I mean, with all the rain we're having, I mean, you know, there's there's a lot of opportunities. And so if you ask me which one I would want to go to, I'd want to go to one that nobody thought we'd go to.
Right.
That's what I would hope. That's what I hope for. But, you know, wherever we land, it's going to be even for all of us because none of us know. Right. And had we maybe fished there or not, that really is irregardless because we're getting no practice. You're literally blasting off, and they didn't even tell us whether we're going to get a ride around. We may just show up and say, all right, safe light. You know, they usually hold us a little bit past safe light just because we're not always familiar with where we're at, and to say, hey, go for it. You know, be back at 3 o'clock. They could have split weigh-in. We don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that would be really interesting if they did take you to the Sacramento River and said, hey, you can't go past like Steamboat or something like that. You get up there and they're like, okay, go ahead, do your drive around. It's like, it wouldn't even be worth it to do a drive around. I mean, you would just burn gas that you need, you know, to run up there and get around. So that would be, there's so many little things and little I don't know, innuendo. It's just, there's just too many factors out there that this thing is going to be, I think it's going to be just super interesting to figure out where they're going to go. You guys find out, everybody finds out at the same time, boom, you're out there and you go. And, you know, it is one of the things that I love taking guys, you know, you guys are supposed to be these badass fishermen, you know, you're supposed to be the best of the best in the West and all this, you know, whatever. Let's see what happens when they put you on a little lake you can't do, you know, that you've never been to. Well, that's what I want to see. That's what I love about this event is that they take you guys and say, well, you say you're good. Let's see how good you are. And put you out there.
Well, you know, and
tired of searching through ads to find bass articles in your favorite fishing magazine? Well, we have a solution for that. Introducing Bass Angler Magazine with over 30 articles in every issue, filled with tips and techniques to help you catch more fish. Follow the pros as they publish the most up-to-date seasonal methods to catching bigger bass. Whether you're a beginner or professional angler, make Bass Angler Magazine part of your gear today. Be a part of the fastest growing bass publication in the nation. Log on to bassanglermag.com with code TV and save 20% when you subscribe now.
Well, and that's something that I've heard some people comment about throughout the year. Like, man, you know, you guys don't catch a lot of fish. Or why do you go to these lakes where there's not that many fish caught? It's like, hey, number one, you know, if we did know where the lake was in advance, there's a 30-day off limits, no information, no practice.
Right.
So, you know, even if you did, you know, like, so before this event last 2 weeks ago, I couldn't go on the Delta for 30 days. Right. I couldn't walk up on the levee, and I keep my boat at Russo's, right? So whenever I would go do some tackle, I call Randy McBride and I say, hey, Randy, just so you know, I'm going to go to Russo's. I'm going to be in the boatyard. I won't walk up on the levee, and, you know, yada, yada, give him the whole rundown because, number one, I don't want somebody telling him that they saw me there. Right. And, you know, and just letting him know my intentions. But that's where I have to go work on my tackle. So, you know, I go work on tackle. I wouldn't drive up to the levee. I had no idea what the grass situation looked like out in Frank's because when I was there before the 30-day off limit started, Frank's track, for those of you who've been there this earlier than fall or late in the summer, it was a giant mat of grass. You couldn't even run across it. So in the morning, I'm sitting at B&W thinking, where in the Frank's track will I even be able to go to? I mean, will this area still be covered up with grass? Will this area be covered up in grass? And I drive into Frank's track. Well, first off, there was a right at the end of I guess what is it, False River, or right where Frank's track meets like the confluence of the McCollum. That they were doing dredging across that slough. So they had booms out and dredge boats and like pilot boats there. So, you know, you had ran over there and then you see all this set up and it's like, hold on, they got to ferry us through. And I didn't even know that was there. You know, so it was like it was like, wow, this is, you know, after 30 days, what do you go start to do right off the bat, you know? So, so but getting back to my point about people are saying, oh, you guys didn't catch a lot of fish or this or that. We're just out there trying to figure it out as it comes. And I don't know many guys who just show up to a lake in the morning and start cracking on them to where it makes for real exciting coverage, you know? So people have to understand that it's us figuring it out. And a good example was that like Comanche, you know, the first day we had 2 weigh-ins. It was super hot. Nobody had been there for 30 days if they even went at all. It took the first period to get your, like, okay, what are the fish doing? How can I get them to bite? That kind of thing. And then the second day got more dialed in. That was the day that I really whacked on them keeper wise and made my top 10 cut that way.
Right.
And then that third day, I'm thinking, oh man, you know, I know I'm going to catch a limit. And I'm thinking I'm going to whack on them. These other guys are going to still struggle. I didn't factor in that, hey, it took me 2 days to figure it out. It took all these other guys 2 days to really figure it out.
Yeah.
So when I show up to weigh in with my limit and everybody else had a limit and I'm like, whoa. And then at first I'm like, man, I can't believe they caught it this good. And then I thought about it for a minute and I said, you know, it took them a day and a half to figure it out. And now that they figured it out, now we're catching the fish.
Right.
And now this is how it would have been fishing had we had practice.
Right.
You know, I would have known right where to be and what time to be there for my schooling fish. And there would have been no question I would have caught them on that first morning. But because we got out a little bit late and I wasn't sure what to do, it took me about an hour to get back to the area where I ended up catching them, you know? And so it's interesting because the weights tend to go up in these tournaments as opposed to go down like they do in a regular pro-am or a team event. That's
because you're not actually wearing out your fish all day long, you know, sitting on a spot. You're finding those fish and then going, okay, I got to come back here tomorrow and be there at this time. Right. And then you come back and do the same thing on the last day and then you wear them out, you know.
Exactly.
It is a different format, you know, rather than a regular old, like you say, the standard 5-fish tournament.
Yeah, no, so there's a lot of different, a lot of little different things that happen in an Apex event that don't happen in a regular multi-day event, you know. And so that's just part of it. And so it's still growing, you know. Jeremy DeHart and like I said, Rick Pierce at Bass Cat and some other real open-minded industry folk are really trying to grow things. And, you know, they understand there's going to be some growing pains and they're going to understand that there's going to be some time that it takes for the viewership and the fans to kind of grasp onto it. But I think it's really going to grow over time. And I think we've got a really good core of anglers, you know?
Yeah. I really think that always, you know, the biggest thing behind growing bass fishing is the fact that we have to figure out a way to get the audience involved in it. There's got to be a way to draw, you know, it hasn't been, I don't think it's been done super successfully yet. I think it's been getting there. And I think maybe this year, I shouldn't say that because I think maybe this year and maybe the last year, you know, some of these other events, the MLF stuff, they've really started to draw the online, you know, people can sit there and put it on their computer while they're at work. They can, you know, stream it on their phone. The technology is just making it, that's, I think is going to be, once they embrace, you know, like that Tourney X is good. And it's really super fun to sit there and just, like you said, I can sit on the computer, do some editing. I can have that thing running up in the corner and just kind of watch my guys and see how they're doing. It is making it very much a spectator sport to where you don't have to be, you know, like football where you got to turn on the TV, sit there and watch it. You can do other things and pay attention to it. When they start to get some highlight, you know, shots, hey guy, you know, ding, guy caught a fish, ding, guys are catching, you know, whatever, that might be a little something else to kind of draw that. But I think for the most part, that's what we're looking for now is trying to figure out a way to make this audience so much better and bigger in bass fishing, because It's never going to grow to be a super sport like a football or baseball, because guys aren't going to, it's not a NASCAR. There's nothing to go watch. Sitting around and watching Zack Thompson fish, and if he's not whacking them, it's like, holy crap, what do I do now?
Yeah, no, fishing. It's tough to make fishing an audience sport, or something that people want to watch live. But
Right.
like things like MLF and the expanded coverage they have,
Right.
it does add to the availability of the anglers and the event in a real time scenario, and so who's to say that in a couple of years or even next year that we don't have some live web streaming going on, or that kind of thing. It's just a matter of kind of us figuring out the way that, or having Apex figure out how best they could serve the audience and just get people engaged,
Right. Well, and that's the biggest thing that we can do out here in the West is we have to change the atmosphere. We got to change what we've been doing for all these years of, I don't want to say keeping it out here, keeping it a secret, because we do send some big names out there. They're the Cody Myers, the Skeet Reese, the Ishman Rose. Those guys are out there. They're doing well. Justin Lucas. Those guys they're sticks, man, and they're out there doing it on the East Coast. They're out there. We sent Austin Wilson out there. He did it. He didn't do great out there, but he made it. He qualified and he went out there and fished. Mark Daniels Jr., made it, and he decided, hey, I'm staying there. The West Coast puts out some damn good fishermen. But a lot of these guys don't want to travel. You're a prime example. You've got a family, you got young kids, you've got, everything. You're not packing up your stuff and heading out east and saying, hey, I'm going to drop $70,000 and go do that.
Well, I did it a couple of years though, so give me a little credit.
I give you a credit for trying it, but things changed for you. It's not a detriment that you have a family. It's what it's saying is that it's finally about time that we have a West Coast tour that's actually going to be big enough and bad enough to come out here and say, you know what, we can do this, and we can show off that we're great competitors too, and we don't have to travel 3,000 miles one way just to go out and have a tournament.
But it's not just about the anglers wanting to do it. It's also growing the outdoors mentality and the fishing, industry out here to where, kids want to go fishing instead of doing other things,
Right.
and for people wanting to say, hey, I want to own a fishing boat so that I can go, enjoy catching bass or catching whatever, and it's just the West Coast doesn't have the same gravitas when it comes to what people want to do when you talk about the outdoors. Where I live in the Bay Area, I know where one bass boat is parked within a 50-mile radius of my house.
Right.
Once you get out to like the Delta, you start seeing some because they live right there.
Right.
But most people don't even know what, that fishing is something you can do as a recreation because it just hasn't been exposed to them, in these urban environments as much as, in the Southeast and stuff. For whatever reason, it's just a much more intensive community to where people want to do it more,
Well, it's just that it's old. It's just that it's old. It's one of those things that people have done for generations. When you get out here to like you say, the San Francisco area, they may have, there may be generations that have fished the ocean and fished the bay. Yeah. We haven't grown up with this generations and generations and generations of bass fishermen, crappie fishermen, cat fishermen. So, it's a small amount of people. I get asked all the time when I'm out there fishing, and it's like, hey, what are you fishing for? Sharks, and it's like not in freshwater mostly, but it's one of those things that you get that question. You're down there fishing. It's like fishing the Delta, and people don't really understand or know what's in there, and it's like it's weird. I say this a lot. The last time the Bassmasters was out here, it was on the Delta, and they launched out of Discovery Park right there Discovery Park right there in Sacramento, and the newscasters are sitting out there going, wow, they sure have pretty boats and they like their lights. But if you go back east, they know their names, they know who they are, they know their records, they know their score. I mean, it's like, what in the it's so different. How is it this different? How is it this disconnected out in California? How is it this disconnected in the West? It's just crazy that we don't I don't even know what to say. We don't inform, we don't educate, we don't put people out there.
But I think it's getting better now with, there's high school fishing, there's college fishing now. Wild West Bass is starting a youth league next year. So that, that's going to be really great to get kids involved. And I think it just starts on the grassroots level, getting kids out there, letting them see how fun it can be, letting them see that people can be on TV fishing that are their neighbors or their friends or people that they can actually see.
Right.
Not Kevin Van Dam, because they'll never meet him unless they go to the Bassmaster Classic or the MLF Redcrest or something.
Right.
So, I think it's just getting the more and more exposure we can have. And now with social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all these different things, all it's going to take is that one paradigm shift moment where, a kid sees that, like I did when I was watching Bassmasters as a kid, on TNN on Sunday mornings. It struck something in me that I wanted to go out there and I wanted to figure out how to be one of those guys. When I was a kid, it was like, man, if I could catch 5 fish, if I catch a limit every time I go fishing, that's what these guys do. So I'd go down to Lafayette Reservoir and my parents would drop me off and I'd fish all day. And I'd be like, man, I caught 3 keepers today, or I caught 5, whatever it was,
Right.
And my friends, we were all really into it. I grew up with Fred Wimbanis, Ish Monroe. We just so happened to all kind of cross paths when we were younger. And we just really loved that catching fish thing, and I think the more kids get exposed to it, especially with like the high school stuff where they get to go out on a real boat and go fishing, when I was a kid, I was happy to rent a paddle boat at Lafayette Reservoir. That was a boat to me,
Right.
But and then when I would tell my dad, hey, I want to get a bass boat, he was like, what are you going to do with that? He didn't get it because it wasn't his thing. He was big into hunting and other things in the outdoors, but it wasn't something that his remembrance of fishing was, going out with a spinner in a creek and catching a couple trout or bobber and bluegill, and whereas, guys ask me, so I tell somebody, oh yeah, I'm a tournament angler. I fish this, I do that. Well, what kind of baits do you use? Oh, I like to punch and flip and throw chatterbaits, and they give you this dumb look. Not dumb look, but they give you like a blank look. Like,
yeah, they're just confused.
They have
don't
no
understand
idea
what
those
said.
things are. And then you try to explain it to them, and they're like, well, my dad used to take me out and catch sharks in the bay. And it's like, yeah, it's nothing like that, Or I tried to take my kid fishing, and he went fishing 3 times. We didn't catch anything. He never wants to go fishing again.
Right.
Well, that's the worst thing you can do, because then the kid thinks, just like his father, fishing is boring. Fishing isn't exciting. Fishing isn't action.
Right.
But, you go out to the Delta with a jerkbait right now, and I put you in my boat with a jerkbait, and you're going to catch 100 fish in a day, and it'll blow your mind, and you'll probably hook that kid or that adult for the rest of their life, So, I think part of what Wild West Bass and Apex and, Bass Cat Boats is trying to do is they're just trying to expose as many people on the West to something new that they can experience and say, I can watch this, I can aspire to do this. There's a means by which I could qualify to be a part of that group, by fishing the Wild West Pro-Ams. And, it gives them a clear path to be able to say, I want to be a fisherman, but I don't want to move to Texas. I want, this is going on the West Coast, and I can aspire to do this on the West Coast. And, there's plenty of sponsorship opportunities for anybody who's a good marketer of themselves.
Yeah, but
to be able to say, hey,
Yeah, but I don't know. I got to step on that one a little bit, because, one of the things that I do see is that, you turn on the TV and you watch a guy that's playing basketball or baseball or football, one of the major sports. And you're also watching that guy drive up in a Lexus. You're watching that guy freaking, he's financially, he's secure. If you're a kid coming up today, it's tough to look out there and go, yeah, these guys are gaming and they're making money. I could sit on a computer and game and make money. I can be
Yeah,
an internet
yeah,
sensation. I can be a basketball player, a baseball player, make some money. But we go
yeah.
out there and you look
Well,
at bass fishing and you go, yeah, but where's the money? Where's the money? And when you look at the back east stuff, there is, they're flashing bucks. Now, mind you, behind the scenes, we all know that the guy that just won that $80,000 just broke even for the day. For
yeah,
the year. That's it. He didn't make no money. He just broke even. And that's probably
yeah.
one of the things that I think this sport has to transition into, is that you want to be bigger, you want to be better at it. You want to draw those younger people. You want them to sit there and say, dude, I can make some money doing this. You have to show them those
Well,
sponsorships. Well, out here, we're still
yeah.
limited. You got to admit that. We're limited on what we have out west. There is
Well,
certain
yeah.
amount of dollars out here, and that's it.
Well, yeah, but if you go back to, okay, kid says, oh, look at LeBron James.
LeBron James making
Yeah,
money.
but how many kids are out there playing basketball that are
Mhm.
actually going to have a legitimate shot of making the NBA? Okay, now
It's like
you're talking
it's like
a
1% of 1% or something.
yeah, it says
It's
like
minuscule.
1 in a million. I mean, you
Right.
might as well buy a lottery ticket if
Yep.
you want to qualify to fish the Apex, and there's maybe 100 guys. They're going to fish all the pro-ams next year and try to qualify for 10
Right.
or 12 or however many spots.
Right.
So as a kid that's maybe 18 that says, you know what, I like playing basketball,
Mhm.
but the chances of me being a pro basketball player, I'd have to play through college. I have to avoid injuries for 15 years. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then I might get a chance to do a workout after college, right? If I win an NCAA.
Right.
And then, or you could be the 18-year-old kid who says, hey, I've got a good job lined up, or I'm in the trades, but I want to fish. You put down your couple $1,000s in entry fees for the pro-ams,
Mm-hmm.
and you have as much of a legitimate shot at making an Apex as anybody. And so
Correct.
instead of talking a 1 in a million shot, you're talking 1 in 150 maybe, or
Right.
or less than that, because they're going to take 10 or 12 guys. So it's much more attainable as a goal. And I mean, granted, if you're born with the genetics to be, a LeBron James or some football player or baseball player, then
Mm-hmm.
so be it. But I mean, you could play baseball and be number 1 in your little league, be number 1 in high school, be number 1 in college,
Right.
get drafted on a team, and then play AAA ball for 15 years, making less money than you would working at McDonald's.
Yep.
So I mean, it's. I think what we need to do
Mm-hmm.
is we need to expose more people to the outdoors. Number one, keeps kids out of trouble, kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Right.
And it just incrementally grow that market to where there's no reason why recreational fishing can't be as popular in California as it is back east. There's no reason why,
there is a reason why.
Texas.
There is a reason why, and you know the reason why. We have politics out here that suck. We have politics out here that are against the outdoors. We have politics that say, no, fishing is bad. We have politics out here that say hunting is bad. We can change it if we actually vote.
We each have a voice. We each have a voice to vote.
Right.
If people would take the time to vote, yes, but that's also education, right? I mean,
right. It starts with the youth. You're right on that point. It starts with getting our youth understanding that the outdoors is not a bad thing. Going out and fishing is not a bad thing. Going out and hunting is not a bad thing. It's something that we need in this state. We need to back up and enforce and stand behind. Unfortunately, right now we got so many people teaching us, teaching our young kids that doing things like that is just wrong. It's like, why are you outside getting dirty? Why are you outside, putting a worm on a hook? What the heck is that about?
No,
that's just wrong.
No, it's true. But I mean, you live
in the heart of that. In the Bay Area.
No, I do. No, you're absolutely right. But it's not unattainable, and there's nothing to say, oh well, our politics are of such an environment that we will never get past that. I don't think that that's a good reason to think that things can't grow, and we're lucky to have people like Jeremy and people like Rick Pierce, you know, and people that are in the industry that really want to see things change are willing to stick their necks out and try these new things to build a platform that can help that grow, you know. And so the only thing I can do as an angler and as an advocate is to be out there and try my best to bring attention to those things, you know, and say, hey, you know, try this, or this is what it looks like on TV. This is, you know, and just get it out there, you know. And you know, the few shows that have aired so far, I think it was just it was a great representation of, you know, the communities that are supporting us, and it's a great representation of pretty much all the anglers that are there, whether you finish first or last. You know, there's no with the Apex, and when we show up to the events, it's whoever wants to put themselves out there. If you want to go talk to one of the camera guys, they're more than happy to shoot you in your boat, let you talk about whatever tackle, you know. And Wild West has sponsors, but if you carry a different sponsor, they're not saying like FLW used to back in the day, oh, you don't run one of our Walmart boats or, you know, one of our brands through Walmart, you're not going to get any coverage, even if you finish in the top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
You know,
I know you fell subject to that specifically. So
yeah, well, a lot of guys did. A lot of guys did, and that's just the way it was. But you know, Jeremy was very adamant in letting everybody know, hey, you know, there's a couple circuit sponsors that we really want to make sure that they understand that we're supporting of them. But at the same time, if you have your own sponsor, there will be no reason why we will avoid you over somebody else just because of what you have your boat wrapped in or a logo on your jersey. You know, it's so it's been very refreshing to say, hey, you know, we want you to support our sponsors, but we also want you to support your sponsors. And so anytime you have a chance to promote them, feel free. You know, there's no like, hey, you got to make sure you mention so and so first before you mention yours. You know, that has not been one part of this, which is also, you know, so it's giving those other endemic and non-endemic sponsors to say, hey, you know, I'm willing to back these other anglers, even though I don't support the tour necessarily, but maybe I will in the future, you know. And so that's been really refreshing too. But you know, I agree with you 100%. You know, our California politics has a lot to do with what people are associated with and what they think is okay and not okay. For some reason, you know, you and I are outdoorsmen. We like to hunt, we like to fish. I have been our whole lives. But I mean, I've lived in the Bay Area my whole life. So for people that are
try
listening,
not to hold that against some people either.
Well, no, for people that are, maybe somebody is listening to this in Texas or somebody listening to this in Oregon, say, or somewhere else, right? Yeah. Not all of us in the Bay Area and in California are of a certain mindset. You know, I mean, we get a reputation of, hey, you're this or you're that. You have long hair, whatever. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of Californians and Oregonians and people even in Southern California that love to hunt and fish, you know, love the outdoors. It's just,
100%.
You know,
I mean, I get that all the time. You know, somebody on some social media platform will be, you know, you're from California. You know what end of the gun to hold. You know, it's you know, you fish, you hunt, you like to do this. It's like, yeah, there's actually quite a few of us. I mean, I think they're dwindling a little bit in the fact that they're just packing up and moving. But like you say, I mean, yes, California is one of the best states in the entire, in the entire union, in the entire country. This is actually one of the best states to have the opportunities that we have in. I mean, if you're talking hunting, we've got elk, we got bear, we got deer, we got, you name it, we got it.
Oh yeah.
You talk about fishing. I mean, you can fish for bass, you can go offshore, you can fish for anything you can basically think of. Guys will get blown away when they're like, what do you mean you can fish for tuna? Yeah. What do you mean you can fish for that? You can do it here. You want to catch sturgeon, you want to catch halibut, you want to catch, it's all right here in California. Yes, we can do it. All we have to do is figure out how to make it okay to do and to teach people that it's okay to do and to stop voting against it and trying to break it up and trying to destroy our heritage.
Yeah, no, it's true. But, and the fisheries we have in California are just, I mean, I've had the fortune of fishing, Falcon Lake, Amistad, Gunnersville, Table Rock, Lake Norman, I'm Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn. I mean, all these places that in fishing lore is like, oh, these places are amazing. And you go to these places, and being that you're not from there, it's a little bit tougher. Maybe you don't have as much history. You don't know where the fish are. But, their really good days are mediocre days. When you can go to Clear Lake and everybody catches limits of 15 to 18 pounds, right? And you're in the middle of the pack in a 100-boat tournament with 18 pounds.
Yep.
That is unheard of.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's maybe a month between like February and April, and on some of those Tennessee River impoundments where everybody's catching big bags. But then all of a sudden
even then big bags are 20, 22 pounds, 24 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, you can 18 pounds.
I was going to say, you can come out here and fish Clear Lake and have 35 pounds. You can have 40 pounds. You can have that at the Delta. You can have that at you can have that at Bullard's Bar. You can have that it's just like, it's ridiculous. I love it when they start talking about, we're going to this spot fishery and they're going to catch these, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's it. They're like pound and a halfers. Okay, well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, and then that a little bit goes back to, these other quote unquote national circuits, which don't come west of Texas. So it's not really a national circuit. It's just a southeastern circuit. But, they don't want to drive. They don't want to drive out here because it's 2,000 miles,
I specifically asked Shaw Grigsby, hey, are you guys just afraid to come out here? Are you just, it's like when I talked to Watson, he was like, I don't want to go out there. I don't want to get my teeth kicked in by somebody else. It's like, oh, but it's okay if they come out there and get their teeth kicked in. But you can't come out here and try to do it out here. No, I don't. We never go out there. Now Shaw's again, he's for it. He's like, yeah, I want to be out there. I'd love to come back out to California. But there are so many guys that have that mentality. They're like, why would I ever want to drive out there? It's like, oh, I don't know, to test your skills against some of the best in the West, to come out there and say, this is actually a national. No, they don't want to do that. Why would they want to do that? They're just going to, like they said, they're just coming out. They're going to come donate their money. Well, I don't know. Be a better fisherman than the other guys.
Well, yeah, but it also goes back to they'll draw 150, 200 boats on a Wednesday nighter. They have that much more participation back there.
100%.
That the industry is willing to put up so much more effort because there's so much more of a market for them to reap a benefit from, and that's what we have to build out here. We have to the Minneapolis-St. Paul region in Minnesota sells more boats than in 1 year than all of California will in a couple of years. I mean, it's a completely different. It's just so completely different. And so that's what it's going to take. It's not going to change in a year. It's not going to change in 5 years. But things like Apex and things, organizations like Wild West are really trying everything that they can to build that market, to where, we start building boat sales, then, people start paying attention, industry start paying attention, like, hey, let's put up more events out here. Let's build the purse up so that we can get more people interested in wanting to fish, and participation is really big. And one thing that I've seen, and, I've been fishing tournaments now since over 20 years. I've been fishing tournaments. And, one thing I've noticed is I am getting old. You are too, by the way, but you're in much better shape than I am now. So I gotta start getting on your program. But, for those of you that don't know, Big Ed is he's not Big Ed anymore. He's Big Ed. I would not want to arm wrestle you, my friend.
Not
but
anymore.
Anyway, but no, getting back to it, oh no, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I'm thinking about your workout routine.
That's the age kicking in right there.
No, but so what I've noticed over my 20 years is a new circuit will come out, and they'll think that they're going to do the best thing, and so, and then they all kind of cannibalize on each other, and one group of anglers say, I'm only going to fish this, and then the other group of anglers say, I'm only going to fish that, and so it segments the population. But back east or in the southeast, guys just want to fish.
They show up to every one of them.
If Wednesday's an American Bass, they show up to that. If it's an MLF, they fish that. If it's a Bassmaster Open, they fish that. You know, it's just like they just want to be involved. And out here, you know, with things like Future Pro and those kind of things, it's like there's restrictions on what you can and can't fish. So, you know, their market is kind of segmented, and then those guys
those are events too, you know. And I know you've been, I want to say, hypercritical a little bit of some of those. Not so much that you think they're wrong to be there, but you think that they're, you know, it's like you don't like the non-inclusive tournaments. You don't like, and there's a lot of guys out there that are that way. I mean, the Future Pro, and here's the thing about the Future Pro, it puts out a heck of an event. Vince Harris puts out a heck of an event, and there's so many guys that wish they could fish what he does, but he won't do a pro-am. He keeps it the amateurs. I've heard so many negatives about what he's done because, you know, with BBT, Future Pro, well, they're making it an amateur event. They're making it so we're taking away from people that are fishing against the pros. And they're, to an extent, I think you're right, but I think they're taking certain people that were never going to fish on the one bass circuit. They were never going to fish on the Wild West. They were never going to fish on these things.
I'll tell you right now, there's anglers and there's teams on both BBT and Future Pro that have no reason to fear fishing against pros. And there's a lot of pros, guys who quote unquote are pro, fishing pro level, right, paying their entry fee for a pro-am, that would learn a lot from Future Pro guys, BBT guys.
Yep.
It's just a matter of perspective and what it is you want to get out of it. You know, and Vince and Randy both do phenomenal jobs with their organizations. I mean, you know, Vince has thrown the big bass tournaments that used to be Berkeley. They went to Yamamoto. I mean, you fished a Berkeley event with me, you know, I mean, back in the day. The truck I drive, I won at one of Vince's tournaments, you know, and I still drive that truck. And it's just that there's a much bigger market out here for a pro level event if everybody was willing to just fish more events, you know. And so,
I mean,
it would take away a little bit of Randy and Vince's business, but it would probably boost Wild West pro-am.
I don't think you're right in that. I think that what it would do is it would get guys more amped up to fish those pro-ams. You know, if guys were willing to, like you say, back east, you know, you have a Wednesday nighter, you know, you go down to the Big Bass Challenge down in Texas and it's 700 boats. You know, we have one here, and if we get 100 boats or maybe 120, it's a big thing. When you see stuff like that, like you say, if those guys decided, hey, I'm going to step up and start fishing these pro-ams, and I don't care I'm going to fish New Gen, I'm going to fish Wild West, I'm going to fish this one, I'm going to fish that one, I'm going to all these different ones. If they just said, hey, I'm just going to fish, I don't care, you know. But the problem is that we also make these things in a champion. You know, we're going to put a championship together, which I think for the most of them is a joke. I don't think they take their championship serious. They don't think that they've actually looked at them and said, you know what a championship should be? It should be an elite event. That's the one thing I really do love about Apex is it's like, yeah, you guys got, you know, you got your field, and it's not the biggest field out there. But when you talk about let's just take a BBT because they draw a lot of boats, but they're out there. Their championship is also like, all you have to do is fish a couple of, you know, you fish the series and you make their championship. So now you got,
it's like you
got 180 event, you know, boats at one event, and it's, you know, and it's always the same. It's always Clear Lake, or it's always whatever. And it's one of those things that you go, so what makes that special? What did I qualify for? All I had to do was show up and fish, and I make an event. I make a championship. There's nothing to that. Now, if I got to be in the top 25 or the top 30 out of everybody, now you got yourself a championship. Now you've got yourself something. The problem is all they're in it for is the money. They turn it around and they make it about money. And the championship to me shouldn't be about money. I mean, there should be money that you win, but I would rather see a boat, or I'd rather see a truck, or I'd rather see something like that. But there should be money that you win. But at the same time, that elite event should actually be that. It should be an elite event. Yeah. It's a championship.
No,
it should qualify.
It's a good point. But you know, I mean, you know, these tournament organizations are businesses after, you know, all said and done.
I get it.
And so, you know, they have to make their bills. They have to pay for all their
Right.
expenses. It's and that's what I hear a lot of guys say. Oh, like, why isn't the payout better? Why isn't this better? Why isn't why do you have to pay an entry fee?
Because they got a
Because,
truck payment too.
Well, right. Well, until we can get enough
Sponsors.
participation and enough growth in the market to where these non-endemic and endemic companies want to put up money because of what they're seeing as a return on their investment, there has to be an entry fee, or else there would be no prize money. So,
well, how much of that do you think too comes from us, us as the anglers, when we do show up to an event, and let's say some guy, a sponsor comes out, let's say a dealership comes out and they got, 3 guys sitting there and they're like, hey, why don't you come over, during the weigh-in or after the weigh-in and sign up for this, and we'll, do a few things. And guys just like, yeah, whatever. And they maybe get, there's 150 boats and they've got, 100, maybe 25 or 50 guys that actually come over and do that. That to me is where those sponsors look at it and go, was it worth our time to show up for 10 guys or 20 guys? How many trucks did we sell, or how much do we do? We have to step up as anglers and participate in all this and say, hey, you know what I want to see? I want to see bigger payouts. You know how I get bigger payouts? I participate in these events 100%.
Yeah.
I stick around and watch the weigh-ins. I don't put my tail between my legs and drive off and whine and piss and moan because I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I stick around. I watch the events. I clap. I shake people's hands, and I participate. We don't do that here. Not in the West. We sure as heck don't do that.
Well, no. Well, that's the big. I'll tell you right now, sponsors and industry folk realize and notice when there's nobody in the stands at the end of an event because everybody takes off. And then these guys think, well, why does this company only do this? Or,
right.
It's because they see that happen, and it sticks in their craw to like, these guys they're not appreciating what we're putting in. And the anglers just think, oh, well, they should have paid out more money, or, I can't believe I only got this much for 15th place or something, it's like, or, so when you go buy a vehicle, if you're going to go buy a tow vehicle, look around at which dealerships are participating in some of the events that you think are important, and go give them your business and say, hey, I saw Thompson, Dodge, Ford, whatever, up in Placerville. I see that you guys are really in a lot of events, or Ram is, big,
Yeah, exactly.
Go out and support those industries.
Support the businesses that are supporting the company. If you're out there in this industry and you see Land O'Lakes putting out money, go spend your money. Go buy your butter from Land O'Lakes. If you see Dodge and Ram are showing up at your local events and they're showing up and doing things, go buy your next truck. Go buy your next vehicle from them. Whoever it is, whatever it is. I don't care if it's the local pizza guy that came out there and said, hey, I brought you guys all some lunch this day. Good. The next time you got a little business meeting or something, go over to his freaking place and spend some bucks, man. Give him the love back that he gave you. If you want these events out here to get bigger, you want these things to go, you want new sponsors, you want money, you want to see these things get bigger, you got to put in the work, man. We got to stop just being jerks, basically. We got to stop whining and pissing and bitching and moaning about, well, I got a 3-hour drive to get home. Well, you drove 3 hours to get here. So wait for another hour and then drive home.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of back scratching from the folks that are in the tournaments, and so that's the part that I think that that's just a mentality that needs to change, and hopefully as the younger anglers come up right now, and they see these companies, they realize that, and they'll also realize, hey, there's opportunities that are going to present themselves. And if I play my cards right and I don't act like a jerk and I do this and I do that, they're going to remember that. And he's, Rick Pierce is a perfect example. I mean, it's one of the last family-owned boat companies in the country now that Ranger and everybody's all owned by conglomerate that basically runs through Bass Pro Shops.
Yep.
And Rick Pierce, he watches, you say something about Bass Cat on Facebook, that guy sees it, and he might not respond to you, but he knows what's going on, and he knows, who's doing good. He knows who's doing bad. He knows way more than you would ever possibly think. Like a boat owner from back east, would be paying attention. But he
Right.
knows, you know,
Right.
he knows things that you would just not even believe. And a lot of these companies are the same way. I mean, you know, a lot of these companies are the same way, and they know what's going on. And the reason that they're not dishing out the big bucks like they do in other parts of the country is because of what they're getting back
Right.
based on participation, sales, regional sales. I mean, they know
Right.
where things are going on. And I think more anglers nowadays should realize that when they post something negative on Facebook,
Oh.
it's not just a ha-ha to whoever you're posting it to. You know, sponsors, potential sponsors, other folks in the industry see that, and they know what's going on. And you know, it's, you know, when you're posting a bunch of pics with your, you know, flipping the bird or out
Yep.
causing trouble, you know, it's not
No,
helping the situation.
It's a negative. It's a negative always. You know, people don't understand the power of social media right now. There are so many people out there that just sit around and all they're looking for is someone to make a mistake, make one little mistake, make one little statement, make one little whatever, and you get burned. You know, real quick. You hear the repercussions of it, and it's a trickle effect down to the core of our sport. You know, people are sensitive. I don't know why, but they are. People are sensitive.
Yeah.
So yeah, they hear you talk about something wrong or talk about something. It's like, you know, bite your tongue, say what you're going to say it to your wife, say it to your kid, whatever, but don't, you know, keep it off the internet. You know, this is, you got an outlet. We've got outlets out there that, you know, you can do this stuff too. So, I don't know. It's just I guess for me, it's like, if you're showing up to an event, you're going to be there, just be there, man, participate, take every part of the event and you know, and be a part of it. Cause like you said, these places, these sponsors, they notice when there's 9 guys left in the parking lot while they're doing, you know, while you're doing.
No, they really do.
They see the pictures and they're like, that was great, but you had like 12 people there. I need to see like 150 to 200 people so that I can actually make some money, or, you know, if I'm going to put my dollar bills in there, I know that my marketing dollars are going somewhere.
Yeah. And the local reps and stuff, the guys that are visiting the tackle shops and that kind of stuff, you know, I hear a lot too. Guys complain about, oh, well, you know, these local tackle shops don't have much tackle, or they don't have this, or they don't have that. So they just go right to Tackle Warehouse and order everything online. But, you know, I mean, there's companies that are trying to grow a brand presence in certain areas. And if people don't visit those tackle shops, those companies immediately think, hey, we sell no product on Bethel Island, right? Or we don't sell any product at Clear Lake Outdoors. So why would we invest our time and our money in an event there that doesn't have any impact on our bottom line? So, but you know, like Robert Cloutier just opened up the bass hole on Bethel Island, you know, and he's worked super hard with all the companies to really get a bunch of good product into that shop. So you walk into that shop now, it's like the Hook, Line, and Sinker was 20 years ago, where there's, I mean, there's stuff in there. You're like, whoa, I wouldn't have thought you'd have this. Or you can go in there and you can grab, you know, a couple different rods and reels and get a feel for it before you buy something. I mean, you can't barely even do that at Bass Pro Shops now. You know, you go in there and they'll have X, Y, and Z, and that's about it. And, you know, but you know, those companies, and I think a lot of guys don't realize how important all those little things are. And then they say, well, why isn't fishing more popular here? Well, they see all their sales going out of San Luis Obispo, right? Through Tackle Warehouse, or Bass Pro Shops. So, we sell a ton of tackle in Manteca, but nobody fishes in Manteca, you know? So all these little, you know, support the people that are trying to support the industry is the biggest thing. And then just being willing to put yourself out there. If you want to fish tournaments, you know, by all means, start in the BBT and the Future Pro, but don't limit yourself to staying there forever, because you're going to miss out on a lot of really good opportunities, and you're going to not be really adding to the growth of the sport overall.
Right.
And that's, I guess that's my take on it.
Well, I mean, it's a valid take. I'm there with you. I believe, you know, we've come up through all that stuff. You know, I mean, we've been fishing together forever, and it's, you know, we fished a lot of different events and a lot of different things out there, and it's, you know, I've watched our industry grow here in the West. I've also seen it, you know, have really, really lean years, really, really big years, really, you know, I mean, we used to give away boats at every event, you know.
Yeah. But that was back when there weren't as many events, though, you know.
Oh, no, you're right. I mean, that's definitely what's happened with us here, is that, I mean, we we used to have, I mean, what, you know, one bass was the ticket. There was nothing really else to fish. I mean, not for a big event. There was always little, you know, smaller tournaments that were going to ABAs and things like that were smaller event. There were always little, you know, blah, blah, blah tournaments. But that was the one that everybody fished, because it was, hey, you fish this because every tournament you got a boat. You got a brand new Ranger boat. You were going out there and you were doing it. Well, you know, that's kind of gone by the wayside. A lot of that is, that, like you said, now there's 9 tournament circuits out here. And it's funny because I hear it all the time. Eventually these tournament circuits die off. They don't make the cut. They don't make enough people. They're not paying their house payment. They got to stop. They got to go back to doing, you know, whatever they do for a living. So then we get these really lean years where there's one event, you know, Wild West steps up, and all of a sudden they're drawing 250, 240 boats. And then all of a sudden somebody goes, oh my God, I can do it better. And they come in and they put all these little tournaments together, and it's like, and they can't. And they die off again. You know, so that's the one thing, you know, you start, like you talked about, you start spreading that money around, and guys just want to go to one event. Oh, they put on the best event. Okay. I've been to some of the best events. You've been to some of the best events, and you know what it's like when you go to a really good event. I mean, it's just like, wow, this is incredible. This is why you do this. When you see those events, it's crazy good. It's so much fun to be in. So, but, well, Zach, we should probably wrap this up, man. It's we're working on that time, getting the hour. I know you got some stuff to do with the family too. You know, thanks for coming on, bud. This is always growing this industry and talking about this industry. You know, you've always been a big advocate for the sport. You've always been a guy that's on the front line of trying to make this bigger and better and better. And you know, guys, go watch his stuff. Go see his, you know, what he's doing out there. Pay attention to him on the tour. He's on the Apex. There's a reason why he's there. You know, he's a heck of a fisherman, and he's got a lot to offer when he comes out there. We'll definitely have him back on the show. We'll definitely talk some, maybe as we get more towards spring and we get towards that Delta again, you know, we'll get some Delta reports out of old Zack Thompson here. And he's a heck of a guy. So,
well,
thanks,
I appreciate it, Ed. Yeah, no, I appreciate your time. Yeah. And hopefully I can put my hammer down this weekend at the Wild West Pro-Am TOC. And then that final day of the Apex is coming. And so, yeah, I'd love to, maybe we could recap how that went, whether I win, lose, or draw. It will be fun to talk about how that goes, because to be honest, I mean, we really don't know where we're going, and that's going to be a really exciting thing. I think that's going to, like I said, you know, it's going to help grow the sport, grow the Apex, and see how it goes in 2022.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got this format here, the podcast. You guys are tuning in right now. Don't forget, we also have Wired for Bass. It's on the YouTube channel. And I'll tell you what we'll do when this is all over. Both these championships are over. We'll do the Wired for Bass up there. It's a video vlog. It's basically a vlog. We'll get up there. We'll have him bring on some of the baits he took and some of the rods. You know, we'll have him bring his whole setups on there. You can actually see what's going on. That'll be a great little episode to see how he did it in the. You know, I mean, we're working on getting into winter now and fishing wherever they're going to be fishing. And I'd love to hear how they decided, you know, where it ended up being. So that'd be great, Zach. I appreciate you. You know, putting that out there. So we'll bring you back out, and we'll talk a little bit about on the Wired for Bass show. Like I said, Bass Angler Magazine YouTube channel. Check that out over there. So, Zach, thanks, bud. We'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely. Tight line. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Yep. Thanks, bud.